Chapter 1. The Fateful Night. The autumn evening had commenced with impeccable perfection. The charity gala at the Waldorf Astoria had been a resounding success, raising over $8 million for children's cancer research. Ethan Rivers, the 42-year-old CEO of America's largest fresh produce distribution company, Rivers Fresh Enterprises, had been the keynote speaker and largest donor of the evening. His presence commanded attention in every room he entered, tall and distinguished, with salt and pepper hair that complemented his piercing blue eyes, a strong jawline, and shoulders that carried the weight of a billion-dollar empire with practiced ease. As he guided his wife, Lila, through the grand ballroom toward the exit, numerous attendees approached to shake his hand, compliment his speech, or simply be acknowledged by one of New York's most influential power couples. Lila Rivers, a former runway model whose face had graced the covers of Vogue and Elle, smiled with practiced charm. Her champagne-colored Versace gown accentuated her willowy frame, the diamonds at her throat and ears catching the light with every graceful movement. At 34, she remained breathtakingly beautiful, her platinum blonde hair arranged in an elegant updo, her emerald eyes calculating beneath perfectly sculpted brows. "You were brilliant tonight," she whispered, her manicured fingers lightly squeezing his arm as they finally escaped the crowd. Her voice carried the slight lilt of her southern upbringing, an accent she typically suppressed but allowed to emerge when seeking to charm her husband. Ethan smiled down at her, though the warmth didn't quite reach his eyes. Their marriage had grown increasingly distant over the past year, their conversations more perfunctory than passionate. Tonight had been their first public appearance together in nearly a month. "The foundation will put the money to good use," he replied, his deep voice carrying the measured confidence that had sealed countless business deals. The crisp October air greeted them as they stepped outside, carrying the distinctive scent of approaching rain. Ethan nodded to the valet, who promptly retrieved his midnight blue Aston Martin DB11. He opened the passenger door for Lila, inhaling the subtle notes of her expensive French perfume as she slid gracefully into the leather seat. The familiarity of the scent triggered a wave of nostalgia for the early days of their relationship, when every moment together had felt electric and full of promise. As Ethan settled behind the wheel, he caught sight of his wife checking her phone, her perfectly manicured nails tapping rapidly against the screen. The slight frown that creased her forehead vanished when she noticed his gaze. "Serena's wondering if we'll make the Hamptons fundraiser next weekend," she explained smoothly. Though Ethan suspected the text had been from someone else entirely, he chose not to press the issue. The engine purred to life, and Ethan eased the luxury vehicle into the late evening Manhattan traffic. Rain had begun to fall, light at first. Then, with increasing intensity, the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers created a hypnotic cadence as they made their way uptown. Classical music, Debussy's Clair de Lune, filled the comfortable silence between them. "I was thinking," Ethan began, his eyes fixed on the rain-slicked road ahead, "perhaps we should take that trip to Kyoto we've been discussing. The cherry blossoms will be magnificent in spring." It was an olive branch, an attempt to recapture something of their earlier happiness. 3 years ago, they had spent a weekend looking at travel books about Japan, making plans and dreaming together. The trip had been postponed repeatedly due to business commitments and Lila's modeling contracts. Lila turned to study his profile, her expression unreadable in the shadows. "That would be lovely," she replied after a moment's hesitation, "though I'm not certain my schedule will permit it. The new Dior campaign begins shooting in March." Ethan nodded, swallowing his disappointment, another rejection, however politely phrased. He wondered when exactly they had stopped prioritizing each other, when their marriage had become a carefully choreographed performance rather than a genuine partnership. The streetlights cast an amber glow on the wet pavement as they entered the Upper East Side. Their penthouse was only 10 minutes away. Ethan's thoughts drifted to the mountain of work awaiting him tomorrow. A major acquisition in California, negotiations with European distributors, a potential expansion into Southeast Asian markets. "You're working too hard again," Lila observed, breaking into his thoughts. "That little crease between your eyebrows gives you away." Her tone carried a hint of genuine concern that surprised him. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. The Thompson deal is proving more complex than anticipated. Their distribution network in the Pacific Northwest is valuable, but their internal operations are a mess. Lila nodded. Though her eyes had drifted back to the window, her interest already waning. The conversation lapsed back into silence as they turned onto East 76th Street. The rain had intensified, drumming against the roof of the car and reducing visibility. Ethan slowed the vehicle further, his hands steady on the wheel. They were less than 5 blocks from home when it happened. A flash of movement caught his peripheral vision, something small darting into the street from between 2 parked cars. In the cone of the headlights, Ethan saw it clearly. A small, wire-haired terrier, soaking wet and terrified, frozen in place as the car approached. "Stop the car!" Lila screamed, her composure shattering as she clutched the dashboard. The raw fear in her voice triggered Ethan's instinctive reaction. Without conscious thought, he swerved sharply to avoid the animal, simultaneously pressing the brake pedal to the floor. The world slowed to a surreal crawl. The Aston Martin's tires lost their grip on the wet road. Ethan felt the sickening sensation of the vehicle beginning to slide sideways. He fought to regain control, his muscles straining against the steering wheel as they spun. He caught a glimpse of the dog scrambling to safety, and for a split second felt a flash of relief. Then came the horrifying realization that they were heading directly toward an oncoming delivery truck. Ethan's last conscious action was to throw his right arm across Lila's body in a futile attempt to protect her. His fingertips grazed the soft fur of the dog as it finally reached the sidewalk, even as blinding headlights flooded his vision from the left. The cacophony of screeching brakes, tearing metal, and shattering glass assaulted his senses. A stabbing pain erupted in his lower back as the impact violently compressed the driver's side of the vehicle. Lila's terrified scream pierced through the chaos, abruptly silenced as her head snapped forward against the airbag. The last thing Ethan registered before darkness claimed him was the taste of blood in his mouth, the smell of burning rubber, and the distant wail of sirens. In those final moments of consciousness, a strange clarity washed over him, a profound understanding that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The carefully constructed world of Ethan Rivers' business titan, philanthropist, husband had been irreparably shattered in a single moment of compassion for a stray dog on a rain-soaked Manhattan street. Chapter 2. Shattered Dreams. The diagnosis was devastating, complete paralysis below the waist. As Ethan lay in his hospital bed, the neurologist's words echoed in his mind like a death sentence. His body, once strong and capable, had betrayed him in an instant of compassion for a stray dog. The impact caused severe trauma to your spinal cord at the 10th thoracic vertebra, Dr. Sharma explained, her dark eyes compassionate behind wire-rimmed glasses. We performed emergency surgery to stabilize the spine and relieve pressure, but there was significant damage to the spinal cord itself. Some patients experience partial return of function over time, she added, her voice gentle but realistic. False hope was not her style. Ethan closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the implications. The powerful executive who commanded boardrooms, the athlete who ran marathons, the lover who had satisfied his wife's desire soul, these versions of himself had vanished in the crash. As days passed in a blur of medical tests and pain management, Ethan noticed Lila's increasing absence. Her visits grew shorter and colder. She stood by the door rather than approaching his bed, her perfect features arranged in a mask of polite concern that never reached her emerald eyes. "I've spoken with the interior designer about modifying the penthouse," she said during one brief visit, her gaze fixed on the window rather than meeting his desperate eyes. "The elevator access makes it relatively adaptable." Her clinical tone told him everything he needed to know. She was already detaching, seeing their home as a space to be redesigned for an invalid rather than the haven they had shared as lovers. When Ethan was transferred to rehabilitation, Lila's excuses multiplied. Business meetings, charity events, photo shoots all, suddenly immovable obligations that prevented her from visiting her paralyzed husband. After 2 weeks of this transparent avoidance, Ethan demanded she visit. They met in the rehabilitation center's garden, autumn leaves creating a colorful backdrop for the death of their marriage. "What's happening between us?" Ethan asked directly, watching Lila's perfectly manicured hands twist nervously in her lap. "Everything's changed," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm trying to adjust, to understand what our life will look like now. For better or for worse," he reminded her. "In sickness and in health." Those were the vows you took. A flash of anger broke through her facade. Don't make me the villain here. This isn't what either of us planned. Do you think I plan to be paralyzed? Ethan countered, his knuckles whitening as he gripped his wheelchair. Lila stood, pacing a few steps before turning to face him. I'm not equipped for this, Ethan. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a caretaker. I never wanted that role. I'm not asking you to be my nurse, he replied. I'm asking you to be my wife. She shook her head, tears finally welling in her eyes. I can't do this, she said, removing her wedding ring with trembling fingers. I'm young. I want to live, to dance, to travel. I won't be a caretaker. The platinum band with its 3-carat diamond caught the sunlight as she held it out to him. 7 years of marriage reduced to a piece of jewelry she no longer wanted to wear. Is there someone else? Ethan asked, voicing the suspicion that had been growing since before the accident. Her hesitation was answer enough. Lucas Bennett, she finally admitted, naming his company's chief marketing officer. It started 6 months ago. The betrayal was staggering, not just personal but professional. Bennett had been in his inner circle, trusted with company secrets and privy to Ethan's personal confidences. I want a divorce, Lila continued, her voice steadier now that the truth was out. I've already spoken with my attorney. Of course you have, Ethan said coldly. Why waste time on reconciliation when there's a fortune to be divided? I want what I'm entitled to, she corrected. Half of everything we've built together. Get out, he said quietly. Tell your attorney to contact Simon. She walked away without looking back, designer heels clicking on the stone pathway. Ethan remained motionless, watching until she disappeared from view. Only then did he allow himself to feel the full weight of this second devastating loss. The divorce papers arrived a week later, delivered by courier to the rehabilitation center. The demands were audacious. The penthouse, the Hamptons property, half his company shares, and monthly alimony that would support a small nation. The media circus that followed was merciless. Tabloids seized on the story of the paralyzed billionaire abandoned by his model wife for his own executive. Paparazzi photographed Lila and Bennett at exclusive restaurants and gallery openings, flaunting their relationship while Ethan struggled through the humiliations of basic rehabilitation. As weeks passed, old friends and business associates gradually disappeared too, leaving only silence in their wake. Board members who had initially made regular appearances now sent brief emails instead. Social invitations ceased entirely. Only Simon Caldwell, his attorney and oldest friend, remained constant, visiting faithfully and managing the legal battle ahead. In the solitude of his hospital room, Ethan confronted the stark reality of his new life. He had lost not only the use of his legs but the woman he had loved, the social standing he had enjoyed, and the unwavering confidence that had defined him. His dreams, like his spine, had been shattered beyond repair. Chapter 3. An Unexpected Light. Nora Brooks wasn't like the other medical staff. From the moment she entered Ethan's room on a crisp November morning, something about her presence commanded his attention. She moved with quiet efficiency, checking his vitals and adjusting his medications without the awkward pity he had grown to despise from other healthcare workers. Good morning, Mr. Rivers. I'm Dr. Nora Brooks, your new resident physician, she introduced herself, her voice carrying a subtle southern warmth. How's your pain level today? On a scale of 1 to 10. 8. Ethan replied truthfully, then added with bitter humor, though only in the parts I can feel. Instead of the uncomfortable smile his dark jokes usually elicited, Nora met his gaze directly. Humor as a coping mechanism is perfectly healthy, Mr. Rivers, but accurate pain reporting helps me do my job better. Her directness was refreshing. Ethan studied her as she documented his vital signs. She was younger than most of his doctors, probably in her early 30s, with rich brown skin and natural hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore no makeup or jewelry, except small pearl earrings, yet possessed a striking beauty that needed no enhancement. Your chart indicates increased inflammation around the injury site, Nora noted, reviewing his records. I'd like to adjust your anti-inflammatory medication and implement a new positioning schedule to reduce pressure on those areas. Whatever you think best, Doctor, Ethan replied dismissively. Though it hardly matters in the grand scheme, Nora paused, setting down her tablet. Your physical condition matters greatly, Mr. Rivers. Inflammation impacts pain levels, which affects sleep quality, mood regulation, and cognitive functional. Of these influence your rehabilitation progress. Rehabilitation toward what end? He challenged. Rolling around my office in a wheelchair while my ex-wife spends my fortune with my former marketing executive. Nora's expression remained professional, but softened with genuine compassion. Toward independence. Toward a life that may be different from what you planned, but can still hold meaning and purpose. Her words struck him unexpectedly, not because they were particularly profound, but because she delivered them with such conviction, as though she truly believed them, rather than reciting from a medical school textbook on patient comfort. "Call me Ethan," he found himself saying. "If you're going to be part of this tragic chapter, we might as well be on a first-name basis." The hint of a smile touched her lips. "Only if you call me Nora." Over the next days, Ethan found himself looking forward to Nora's visits. Unlike other doctors who rushed through examinations, she took time to explain treatment decisions and listen to his concerns. She treated him not with pity but with respect, seeing past his wheelchair to the man within. During one evening check-in, Nora arrived as he was struggling with a particularly frustrating physical therapy exercise, attempting to transfer himself from the wheelchair to the bed without assistance. "May I?" she asked, not moving to help, but waiting for his permission. Ethan nodded, sweat beading on his forehead from exertion and pain. "Your left arm positioning is creating instability," she observed, demonstrating the correct technique without touching him. "Try again, but lock your elbow like this." Following her guidance, Ethan completed the transfer successfully. The small victory felt disproportionately significant after weeks of failures. "Thank you," he said, genuinely grateful. "Though I'm sure you have more important patients to attend to than coaching me through basic movements. Every patient deserves dignity and independence. Mr. Reverse Ethan," Nora corrected herself. "Besides, I'm off duty. My shift ended 20 minutes ago." The revelation surprised him. "Why are you still here?" Nora shrugged. "I saw you working with the physical therapist earlier. Your determination was impressive, but your technique needed adjustment. I thought I might help. At the expense of your personal time? I'm dedicated to my patient's recovery," she replied simply, "and I believe you have exceptional potential for rehabilitation progress." Her faith in his recovery, when he himself had nearly abandoned hope, stirred something within Athana. Flicker of the determination that had once driven him to build Rivers Fresh Enterprises from a modest family business into a billion-dollar corporation. "Tell me about yourself, Nora," he said suddenly, beyond the white coat and medical expertise. She hesitated momentarily, then sat in the visitor's chair. "What would you like to know? Where are you from? Your accent suggests somewhere southern." "Good ear. I grew up in Savannah, Georgie Asmal House, big family. 4 siblings, plus cousins who lived nearby. How did you end up in neurology at Mount Sinai?" A genuine smile brightened her face. "Full scholarship to Emory for undergrad, then medical school at Johns Hopkins. I specialized in spinal cord injuries because my oldest brother sustained one in a construction accident. His recovery journey showed me both the medical challenges and the incredible resilience of patients." As she spoke about her family and education, Ethan glimpsed a life so different from his privileged upbringing, one built on hard work, community support, and unwavering determination. Nora had earned everything she achieved without shortcuts or connections. Their conversation flowed naturally until a nurse appeared to remind Nora about another patient requiring consultation. Before leaving, she paused at the door. "Tomorrow morning, I'm bringing you research papers on experimental treatments for spinal cord injuries," she said. "Not to create false hope, but because knowledge is power, understanding your condition fully might help you engage more meaningfully with your recovery." After she left, Ethan realized he had spent an hour without thinking about Lila, the divorce, or his company. The constant anger that had accompanied him since the accident had temporarily receded, replaced by genuine curiosity about this remarkable young doctor. Their interactions became a highlight of Ethan's days. Nora shared stories of her childhood in Georgia, her scholarship to medical school, her dreams of eventually opening a rehabilitation center focused on holistic recovery for spinal cord patients. Her voice, with its gentle southern cadence, seemed to smooth the jagged edges of his bitterness. What impressed him most was her balanced perspective on his injury, neither falsely optimistic nor grimly pessimistic. She acknowledged his limitations without defining him by them, challenging him physically and intellectually while respecting his autonomy. During one physical therapy session, Ethan's frustration peaked when he couldn't complete an upper body strengthening exercise. "This is pointless," he snapped, shoving away the resistance bands. "No amount of arm strength will make my legs work again." Nora, who had been observing from the doorway, entered the gym. "May I have a moment with Mr. Rivers?" she asked the physical therapist, who nodded and stepped away. "You're right," she said, sitting across from Ethan. "These exercises won't restore function below your injury level." Her agreement surprised him. "Then why waste my time?" "Because upper body strength will determine whether you can live independently or require constant assistance, whether you can transfer yourself to a car and drive again, whether you can return to your company and lead from a wheelchair rather than from the sidelines." Her words cut through his self-pity with surgical precision. "You don't sugarcoat anything, do you? Would that help your recovery?" she challenged, dark eyes meeting his directly. Despite himself, Ethan laughed a rusty sound he barely recognized. "Probably not." "Then, no, I won't sugarcoat reality. But I also won't let you abandon your potential because you're fixated on what you've lost rather than what you can reclaim." That evening, she brought him home-cooked food, low-country shrimp and grits that put the hospital's bland offerings to shame. "My grandmother's recipe," she explained, setting up the meal on his bedside table. "Food is medicine too, especially for the spirit." As they shared the meal, Nora's laugh, rich and genuine, began to heal something in him that had nothing to do with his physical condition. For the first time since the accident, Ethan felt a connection that wasn't based on pity, obligation, or professional duty. One afternoon, as Nora checked his surgical incision, Ethan noticed dark circles under her eyes. "Double shifts again?" he asked. She nodded, suppressing a yawn. "The hospital is short-staffed, and I need the experience." "And the money," she guessed, remembering her mention of student loans. "That too," she admitted without embarrassment. "Medical school doesn't pay for itself, and my family doesn't have trust funds." "What would you do if money weren't an issue?" Ethan asked, genuinely curious. "If you could practice medicine however you wanted?" Nora considered the question thoughtfully. "I'd create a rehabilitation center that treats the whole person, not just the injury. Physical therapy, psychological support, vocational retraining, adapted living skills all under one roof, with extended follow-up care." Her vision was compelling, practical yet innovative. Ethan recognized the same entrepreneurial spark that had driven his own business success. "Why wait?" he asked. "With your qualifications, you could secure funding." "Eventually," she agreed. "After my residency, after paying down my loans, after establishing my reputation. Good things take time." Her patience and long-term perspective contrasted sharply with the instant gratification Ethan had grown accustomed to in his wealthy lifestyle. It was humble and somehow refreshing. As the weeks passed, Ethan found himself measuring time not by the progress of his rehabilitation or the milestones of his divorce proceedings, but by Nora's visits and the growing connection between them. Chapter 4. Growing Close. As December arrived, bringing the first snowfall to Manhattan, Nora became Ethan's anchor in a world that had shifted beyond recognition. His days revolved around her visits, which extended beyond the requirements of her medical duties. What began as professional courtesy evolved into genuine friendship, then something deeper that neither of them acknowledged aloud. "Your progress is remarkable," Nora noted one afternoon while reviewing his physical therapy charts. Sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the golden undertones in her complexion. "I have excellent motivation," Ethan replied, his eyes meeting hers meaningfully. Nora smiled, but maintained her professional composure. "Speaking of motivation, I've been researching adaptive sailing programs. Before your injury, your file mentioned you enjoyed weekend sailing." The thoughtfulness of this gesture touched Ethan deeply. While everyone else focused on what he had lost, Nora consistently sought ways for him to reclaim his passions. During evenings when her shift ended, Nora often stayed, sharing dinner and conversation. She told him about growing up in Georgia, the youngest of 5 children born to a high school teacher and a postal worker. Her scholarship to medical school had been the culmination of years of academic determination, working part-time jobs while maintaining perfect grades. My mama cried when I got the acceptance letter, Nora recalled, her southern accent becoming more pronounced as she spoke of family. First doctor in our family. My brother's accident made it clear what specialty I would pursue. Tell me more about your brother, Ethan prompted, genuinely interested in the experiences that had shaped her. Nora's expression softened. Jasper was a construction foreman. Fell 3 stories when scaffolding collapsed. T8, complete injury, similar to yours. Doctors told him he'd never work construction again. What happened to him? He started his own company, she said proudly. Specializes in accessible home modifications. He employs other people with disabilities, trains them in the trade. He's married now, with twin daughters. Her brother's story offered Ethan something he desperately needed. A vision of a fulfilling life after spinal cord injury that wasn't defined by limitations. Ethan shared stories too, building Rivers Fresh from his father's modest produce company into an empire, of his passion for sailing, of his childhood dreams before wealth and status became his primary metrics for success. He didn't mention Lila or the divorce proceedings, though Nora surely knew from hospital gossip and media coverage. Her discretion was another quality he admired. One evening, as they shared takeout from Nora's favorite Thai restaurant, Ethan gathered courage. When your rotation ends next week, will you still visit? He asked, striving for casualness. Nora set down her chopsticks, considering the question. That depends on whether we're maintaining a doctor-patient relationship or acknowledging what's developing between us. Her directness was refreshing after months of evasions from Lila and politically correct platitudes from colleagues. And what is developing between us? Ethan asked. Nora met his gaze steadily. Something that makes me look forward to seeing you each day. That makes me think about you when we're apart. Something I shouldn't feel for a patient but can't seem to help. Ethan's heart raced. I feel it too. I know, she said with a small smile. But professional ethics matter to me, Ethan. I've already requested a transfer from your case. Doctor, Patel will take over your care starting Monday. Because of your feelings? Because I want the freedom to explore those feelings without ethical complications. Her integrity only deepened his admiration and emerging love for her. Unlike others in his life who compromised principles for advantage, Nora's moral compass remained unwavering. When Monday arrived, Ethan felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Dr. Patel was competent, but lacked Nora's intuitive understanding of his needs. The day stretched endlessly without her visits. Evening brought a soft knock on his door. Nora entered, dressed not in medical scrubs but in a simple blue dress that accentuated her natural beauty. You came, Ethan said, unable to hide his relief. I'm not your doctor anymore, she replied. Just a woman visiting a man she cares about. They talked for hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly between serious topics and shared laughter. For the first time, Ethan spoke openly about his divorce, about Lila's betrayal with his marketing executive, about the friends who had disappeared when his perfect life shattered. Nora listened without judgment, offering neither platitudes nor pity, just understanding and occasional questions that helped him process his own feelings. The accident revealed what my marriage truly was, Ethan concluded. Maybe that knowledge is worth the price I paid. Life-changing moments have a way of stripping away pretense, Nora agreed, showing what's genuine and what's merely convenient. As she prepared to leave, Ethan caught her hand. Will you come again tomorrow? I have the night shift, she said regretfully, but I'm free for breakfast. Morning brought Nora and fresh bagels from his favorite deli. Her thoughtfulness in remembering such details touched him deeply. Their relationship developed with careful deliberation. Nora was conscious of the power imbalance his wealth, her medical role in his recovery, his vulnerability after betrayal. She insisted on taking things slowly, building a foundation of friendship and mutual respect. Ethan found himself treasuring this gradual unfolding, so different from the whirlwind courtship with Lila that had been fueled by physical attraction and social advantage. When Ethan was finally discharged to his penthouse in January, Nora helped him navigate the transition. The home he had shared with Lila had been modified for accessibility, but memories lurked in every corner. We could find you a new place, Nora suggested, noticing his discomfort, somewhere without history. This place isn't the problem, Ethan replied. It's the emptiness in it. Nora understood what he couldn't articulate, that beyond physical accessibility, he needed to rebuild a sense of home, of belonging. She began bringing small touches that transformed the sterile penthouse: fresh flowers from the farmer's market, hand-knitted throws made by her grandmother, books they could discuss together. The space gradually reflected their emerging relationship rather than the ghost of his marriage. Their first kiss happened naturally on a quiet evening as they watched the sunset from his penthouse terrace. The Manhattan skyline glowed golden in the fading light, a beautiful backdrop to this new beginning. Nora's lips were soft against his, the kiss gentle but filled with promise. When they parted, her eyes held both tenderness and certainty. No words were needed. They both recognized this moment as a threshold crossed. As their relationship deepened, Ethan discovered layers to Nora that only strengthened his growing love. Her strength was matched by compassion, her intelligence by wisdom, her ambition by integrity. She challenged him intellectually and emotionally, never allowing him to retreat into self-pity or cynicism. For her part, Nora saw beyond his disability to the man he was becoming: more authentic, more resilient, and more compassionate than the driven CEO he had been before. She valued his business insights and strategic mind, but loved most the vulnerable heart he now allowed her to see. With Nora's encouragement, Ethan began re-engaging with Rivers Fresh Enterprises, participating in video conferences and strategic planning. His perspective had shifted. Profit margins seemed less important than corporate responsibility and employee well-being. Together, they began exploring the possibility of establishing the rehabilitation center Nora had dreamed of, a place that would combine cutting-edge medical care with holistic support for patients with spinal cord injuries. Their relationship became a partnership of equals, each bringing different strengths but sharing core values. Nora's presence in his life had become the unexpected gift from his tragedy, love based not on appearance or status, but on genuine connection and mutual growth. One night, as they lay together talking about future plans, Ethan realized with startling clarity that he had never been happier, even before his injury. In losing everything he had once valued, he had found something infinitely more precious. Chapter 5: Difficult Choices. As February arrived with its crystalline skies and biting winds, Nora's residency rotation at the rehabilitation center approached its conclusion. For Ethan, this transition represented far more than a change in medical personnel. It threatened the one relationship that had brought meaning back to his life. During a routine follow-up appointment, Ethan watched Nora review his latest test results, her practiced hands sorting through charts with the efficiency that characterized everything she did. Sunlight from the window caught the subtle auburn highlights in her dark hair, illuminating her focused expression. "Your inflammation markers have improved significantly," Nora noted, looking up with a professional smile. "The new medication protocol is working well." Ethan nodded, his mind preoccupied with the impending change. "What exactly happens next week, when your assignment here ends?" Nora set down his chart, her expression softening. "I'll begin my rotation in neurosurgery at Mount Sinai. It's the final segment of my residency program, and we'll no longer see each other professionally," Ethan stated, working to keep his voice steady. "That's correct." Nora met his gaze directly. "Dr. Carter will take over your outpatient care. He's exceptional, one of the best in spinal rehabilitation." Ethan weighed his next words carefully, understanding their significance. "Stay on as my private physician. Name your price: $1 million, $2 million. Nora's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of her surprise. "Mr. Rivers." "Ethan," he corrected. "After everything we've shared, I think we're beyond formalities." "Ethan," she amended. "That's an extraordinary offer." "I can afford it," he replied simply. "My medical needs are complex and ongoing. Having a dedicated physician with your expertise would be invaluable." Nora rose and moved to the window beside him, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The afternoon sun cast her profile in gold, highlighting her elegant features. "Is that really what you're offering, a professional arrangement?" Her perceptiveness challenged him to honesty. "No," he admitted after a moment's hesitation. "It's not just about medical care." "Then what is it about?" Ethan turned his wheelchair to face her fully. "You're the only person who still sees Minot the injury, not the wheelchair, not the wealth or the scandal of my divorce." just me. When you're here, I remember who I am beyond all of that." Nora's expression softened, but her response remained measured. "Ethan, my care isn't for sale. If I stay, it will be because we both know there's something more meaningful growing between us." Her integrity struck him profoundly. In his previous world of transactional relationships, everyone had a price. Nora operated by different principles he was beginning to admire and aspire to himself. "And is there," he asked quietly, "something meaningful between us?" Nora didn't answer immediately. She returned to her chair, maintaining professional distance even as her eyes revealed deeper emotions. "I believe there could be, but it can't begin with you as my patient and me as your purchased physician." "What do you suggest?" "Complete honesty about what we both want," she replied, "and appropriate boundaries until my professional obligations to you are concluded." Ethan considered her words carefully. What did he want? The answer came with surprising clarity. Not a caretaker or employee, but a partner, someone who challenged him to become more than his circumstances. "I want to know you beyond these hospital walls," he admitted. "I want to discover who Nora Brooks is when she's not Dr. Brooks. I want to build something real, if you're willing." Nora's smile was like sunrise after the darkest night. "I'm willing, but we do things properly. No shortcuts, no buying your way past ethical considerations." "Agreed," Ethan said, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders, though it won't be easy to wait. "The worthwhile things rarely are," Nora replied, her southern accent more pronounced with emotion. That evening, after Nora had completed her rounds, she returned to Ethan's apartment, dressed in civilian clothes, simple jeans, and a soft blue sweater that transformed her from physician to woman. They talked for hours, no longer constrained by the doctor-patient relationship, sharing dreams and fears that transcended their different backgrounds. As Nora prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. "Difficult choices often lead to unexpected blessings," she said softly. "Remember that, Ethan, when the road ahead seems impossible." Her words proved prophetic. In the days that followed, the board of Rivers Fresh Enterprises requested an urgent meeting about Ethan's continued leadership. Lila's attorney increased demands in the divorce proceedings, and Ethan's medical insurance questioned the necessity of certain specialized treatments, threatening to withdraw coverage. Through each challenge, Nora remained his steadfast support, not solving his problems, but reminding him of his capacity to face them. Their relationship deepened through these trials, built on mutual respect rather than dependence. When Nora's final day as his physician arrived, Ethan faced the moment with mixed emotions: reluctance to lose her medical expertise, but eagerness to begin their personal journey without professional constraints. "Tomorrow," she said, completing his chart one last time, "I'll return as Nora, not Dr. Brooks, if that's still what you want." Ethan reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining in a simple gesture that promised so much more. "It's all I want," he replied, certain that this difficult choice marked the beginning of their most important chapter. Chapter 6, New Beginnings. Their first kiss happened naturally on a quiet evening in early March as they watched the sunset from his penthouse terrace. The Manhattan skyline, painted in vibrant oranges and pinks, provided a perfect backdrop for this pivotal moment in their relationship. Nora had arrived carrying fresh flowers and homemade cornbread, a recipe passed down from her grandmother. "Southern hospitality," she explained with a smile that warmed Ethan more than the spring evening. After dinner, Ethan suggested they watch the sunset from the terrace. He navigated his wheelchair with practiced ease, having mastered the modified pathways of the penthouse that once felt like obstacles but now represented his growing independence. "It's beautiful," Nora said, gazing at the horizon where the sun melted into golden light between skyscrapers. She stood beside his wheelchair, close enough that he could detect the subtle vanilla scent of her perfume. "Yes, beautiful," Ethan agreed, though his eyes remained fixed, not on the sunset but on her profile. Nora turned, catching his gaze. The air between them seemed to still, charged with unspoken emotion that had been building for weeks. No longer doctor and patient, no longer restricted by professional boundaries, they faced each other as simply man and woman. Ethan reached for her hand, and Nora interlaced her fingers with his. Without words, she leaned down, and their lips met in a gentle kiss that conveyed both tenderness and promise. When they parted, Ethan saw in Nora's eyes the same certainty he felt. This was the beginning of something profound, something healing for them both. "I've wanted to do that since the day you told me my injury doesn't define me," he admitted. Nora smiled, touching his face with gentle fingers. "I've wanted you to since the day you started believing it." Their relationship deepened, marked by long conversations and shared dreams. Nora's strength and independence matched his drive, creating a partnership of equals. Unlike Lila, who had seen his injury as an inconvenience that disrupted her lifestyle, Nora viewed Ethan's condition as simply one aspect of the complex man she was growing to love. Ethan discovered that Nora's apparent confidence masked vulnerabilities of her own. Doubts about balancing her medical career with personal life. Fears that her humble background might someday create distance between them. Concerns about the public scrutiny their relationship would inevitably face. "The tabloids will have a field day," she remarked one evening as they discussed going public with their relationship. "Former doctor dates wealthy patient. They'll question my ethics, my motives." "Let them," Ethan replied, his tone resolute. "We know the truth of what we've built together." Nora's honesty about her concerns only strengthened their connection. Unlike his marriage to Lila, which had been built on mutual benefit and superficial compatibility, his bond with Nora was rooted in genuine understanding and emotional intimacy. With Nora's encouragement, Ethan began reconnecting with Rivers Fresh Enterprises, initially through video conferences and eventually by visiting headquarters in his wheelchair. The board members who had distanced themselves after his accident now scrambled to demonstrate their support, though Ethan recognized the insincerity behind many of their gestures. Only Clara Hudson, his COO, had remained consistently loyal, managing the company with competence while keeping Ethan informed of all major decisions. When they met in person for the first time since his accident, her warm hug and absence of pity confirmed why he had promoted her years ago. "The company needs your vision, Ethan," Clara said frankly, "and from what I can see, you need the company too, not just as CEO, but as the innovator you've always been." She was right. Returning to work, even part-time, restored a crucial dimension of Ethan's identity. Nora supported this wholeheartedly, understanding that his recovery encompassed more than physical rehabilitation. "Healing happens in many ways," she told him. "Sometimes the mind and spirit need purpose as much as the body needs therapy." Their relationship became public knowledge when they attended a charity gala together in April, Ethan's first social appearance since the accident. Nora wore a simple emerald gown that complemented her dark skin and radiated elegance without ostentation. Ethan, impeccably dressed in a custom suit tailored to his seated position, felt a pride escorting her that had nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with the woman herself. Flashbulbs exploded as they entered, and whispers followed them through the ballroom. Ethan noted with grim satisfaction the shocked expression on Lila's face when she spotted them from across the room. She clutched Lucas Bennett's arm tightly, her smile faltering momentarily before she recovered her model's poise. "Your ex-wife is staring," Nora whispered, maintaining her own gracious smile. "Let her," Ethan replied, taking Nora's hand. "Some losses are actually gains in disguise." Later that evening, as they shared a private dance, Nora seated on Ethan's lap in his wheelchair, as they swayed gently to the music, Ethan realized how profoundly his definition of happiness had transformed. The external trappings of success that once seemed essential now felt hollow compared to the authentic connection he had found with Nora. Their relationship deepened, marked by mutual respect and genuine partnership. Unlike his marriage to Lila, which had been built on appearance and social advantage, his bond with Nora was founded on shared values and genuine understanding. When they faced challenges, whether from ongoing divorce proceedings, media speculation, or the everyday difficulties of navigating life with a spinal cord injury, they confronted them together, each bringing different strengths to their partnership. One evening, as they discussed plans for the rehabilitation center Nora dreamed of establishing, Ethan realized with profound clarity that his accident, for all its devastation, had led him to a far more authentic life than he had lived before. In losing what he once thought essential physical capability, his marriage, certain social connections, she had gained something infinitely more valuable, a relationship built on substance rather than surface, on truth rather than convenience. This new beginning with Nora represented not just a personal renaissance, but a fundamental shift in what he valued and how he defined success. As the sun set on that chapter of planning their shared future, Ethan understood that sometimes life's most devastating blows can lead to its greatest blessings. Chapter 7. Recovery and Romance. Under Nora's care and motivation, Ethan began making remarkable progress throughout the spring months. Physical therapy transformed from an obligation into a shared mission, as Nora attended sessions whenever her medical schedule permitted. Her presence motivated Ethan to push beyond perceived limitations, working through pain and frustration toward incremental victories. 5 more repetitions, Nora encouraged during a particularly challenging upper body strength training session in May. Sweat dampened Ethan's shirt as he struggled with the resistance bands. "I can't," he gasped, muscles trembling with exertion. "You can," Nora countered firmly. "You're stronger than you realize." Her confidence in him provided the push he needed. Completing the set, Ethan collapsed back in his wheelchair, exhausted but triumphant. "You're a taskmaster," he complained without heat. Nora smiled, handing him a towel. "The best kind, and who believes in you more than you believe in yourself." This pattern defined their relationship, Nora challenging Ethan to reach beyond comfortable boundaries while providing unwavering support through inevitable setbacks. Unlike the physical therapists who celebrated any progress, Nora understood that Ethan needed to be pushed toward excellence, not merely improvement. Their romantic relationship developed alongside his physical recovery. Each milestone in therapy paralleled by deepening emotional intimacy. Evenings found them discussing everything from business strategies to philosophical questions about purpose and meaning after life-altering events. Nora shared her experiences growing up in Georgia, where her family had faced both financial hardship and racial prejudice with dignified determination. These stories gave Ethan perspective on his own challenges, revealing a resilience in Nora that he increasingly drew upon in his own recovery. "My daddy always said that character isn't built during easy times," Nora told him one evening as they prepared dinner together in his adaptive kitchen. "It's forged in fire and revealed when everything comfortable is stripped away." Ethan considered this wisdom, recognizing how his accident had indeed stripped away the comfortable facade of his previous life, revealing both the shallowness of his marriage and the conditional nature of many friendships. Yet it had also uncovered unexpected strength within himself and opened the door to authentic love with Nora. Their physical relationship progressed with patience and creativity. Ethan's spinal injury had affected sexual function, a reality they addressed with characteristic honesty. Nora's medical knowledge and emotional sensitivity helped them navigate these intimate challenges, discovering new ways to express physical affection that respected his capabilities, without defining their connection by limitations. "Intimacy isn't about perfect function," Nora assured him during an early moment of frustration. "It's about connection, seeing and being seen, touching and being touched." Her acceptance freed Ethan from shame, allowing their physical relationship to develop organically alongside their emotional bond. With time and trust, they built a satisfying, intimate life that honored both desire and reality. 4 months into intensive rehabilitation, Ethan's therapists began discussing the possibility of standing exercises using parallel bars, though they cautioned against expectations of walking. Even supported standing offered significant health benefits for circulation, bone density, and psychological well-being. Nora arranged her schedule to attend this momentous session. She stood beside the physical therapist as assistants helped position Ethan at the parallel bars, special braces supporting his legs. "Focus on using your arms to support your weight," the therapist instructed. "Will stabilize your lower body." Ethan gripped the bars, doubt clouding his expression until he caught Nora's gaze. Her eyes held absolute faith in him, not false hope for miraculous recovery, but confidence in his strength and determination. Drawing on that belief, he pushed against the bars, lifting himself incrementally. The process was agonizingly slow, tremors coursing through his arms as muscles strained against gravity and inertia. Seconds stretched like hours as he fought for each millimeter of lift. Finally, incredibly, he achieved a semblance of standing, supported by both equipment and his own straining arms. Tears streamed down his facetiers of exertion, achievement, and complex emotion as he experienced verticality for the first time since the accident. From this position, he could almost meet Nora's eyes at her natural height, a perspective he had forgotten during months in the wheelchair. "You're doing it," Nora whispered, her own eyes glistening with unshed tears. The moment lasted barely 30 seconds before his strength gave out. The first time he stood again, tears streaming down his face, Nora was there to catch him when his knees buckled, both from weakness and joy. "I've got you," she assured him, helping the therapists ease him back into the wheelchair. Her touch communicated everything words couldn't. Pride, love, and partnership. Through whatever challenges lay ahead. That evening, celebrating this milestone in the privacy of the penthouse, Ethan proposed a toast to standing on my own with a little help. Nora clinked her glass against his. The best kind of strength knows when to accept support. Their journey continued with both triumphs and setbacks. Some days brought progress. Increased standing time, improved core strength, enhanced wheelchair mobility. Other days delivered frustration, pain flare-ups, equipment malfunctions, emotional exhaustion from the constant work of rehabilitation. Through it all, their relationship deepened. Nora's medical rotation took her to different hospital departments, yet she remained Ethan's most steadfast supporter. Meanwhile, Ethan gradually increased his involvement with Rivers Fresh Enterprises, his business acumen undiminished by physical limitation. Together, they began seriously planning the rehabilitation center. Nora had long envisioned a facility that would combine cutting-edge medical treatment with holistic support for patients with spinal cord injuries. Ethan's business expertise complemented Nora's medical knowledge, their complementary skills, creating a viable blueprint for what had once been merely a dream. "We'll need to secure both investors and medical partnerships," Ethan noted as they reviewed preliminary plans one evening. "And ensure insurance coverage for innovative treatments," Nora added, her practical mind considering accessibility beyond the wealthy clients Ethan was accustomed to serving. Their vision extended beyond physical rehabilitation to include psychological support, vocational training, and family education, addressing the whole person rather than merely the injury. This project gave their relationship additional dimension, uniting them in purpose beyond their personal connection. 6 months after beginning rehabilitation, Ethan achieved another milestone, standing with forearm crutches and leg braces for nearly 5 minutes. Though far from independent walking, this progress expanded his mobility options and psychological horizons. The news coverage of this achievement painted Ethan as an inspiration, highlighting his determination and resources while largely ignoring the medical team behind his progress. Only Nora's name received mention, their relationship now public knowledge that added romantic interest to the story of recovery. Lila, seeing these headlines during the ongoing divorce proceedings, intensified her demands through increasingly aggressive legal maneuvers. Her attorney suggested that Ethan's improved condition undermined claims about the severity of his disability, attempting to reduce her settlement offer. These legal battles cast shadows over Ethan and Nora's happiness, yet also strengthened their bond as they faced external challenges together. "Why does she need more?" Nora asked one evening after particularly contentious legal communications. "She has her modeling career, her relationship with Bennett, and the generous settlement you've already offered." Ethan sighed, setting aside legal documents. "It's not about need. It's about winning." Lila measures success by what she extracts from situations: financial gain, social advantage, public attention. Nora considered this assessment, recognizing how profoundly different her values were from Lila's. Where Ethan's ex-wife sought external validation through acquisition, Nora found fulfillment in contribution and connection. "What a hollow way to live," she observed without malice, simply stating truth as she perceived it. Ethan reached for her hand, marveling at how completely his own values had transformed. Before the accident, he might have understood Lila's perspective, having operated from similar premises of competitive advantage and material success. Now, with Nora, he recognized the greater wealth found in authentic relationship and meaningful purpose. "Thank you," he said suddenly, squeezing her fingers gently. "For what?" "For helping me discover what truly matters, for seeing value in me beyond what I can do or provide." Nora's smile illuminated her entire face. "That's not charity, Ethan. That's love, seeing the essence of someone beyond circumstance." In that moment, watching her beautiful expression of genuine affection, Ethan understood that his greatest recovery had nothing to do with physical capability. His heart, broken by betrayal and trauma, had healed more completely than his body ever would, transformed by genuine love into something stronger and more authentic than before. Chapter 8. shadows from the past. The threatening message arrived on a sunny July morning. Video footage of their intimate moments, accompanied by Lila's ultimatum. The package was delivered to Ethan's penthouse while Nora prepared breakfast in the kitchen, humming softly to herself as she moved with easy familiarity through the space that had increasingly become their shared home. Ethan opened the unmarked envelope, expecting business documents. Instead, he found a USB drive and a handwritten note in Lila's elegant script. "Leave her, or I'll destroy what's left of your reputation. Your choice, darling." His hands trembled as he connected the drive to his laptop. The video began playing automatically footage of his bedroom, capturing private moments between him and Nora over the past month. The camera angle suggested hidden surveillance equipment, professionally installed. The implications were staggering. "Coffee's ready," Nora called from the kitchen, her voice a jarring contrast to the violation he was witnessing on screen. Ethan closed the laptop abruptly, his mind racing. How had the cameras been installed? Who had access to his home? The renovation team that had modified the penthouse for accessibility had been Lila's choice. Completed before their relationship imploded, had she planned this level of surveillance even then? "Ethan, is everything all right?" Nora appeared in the doorway, concern evident in her expression as she observed his ashen face. "Just business complications," he lied, hating the deception but needing time to process the threat before involving her. "Nothing that can't wait until after breakfast." Throughout their meal, Ethan maintained a facade of normalcy while his thoughts churned. Lila's motivation was clear. The divorce proceedings were nearing conclusion, with the final settlement significantly less than her initial demands. Thanks to evidence of her pre-accident infidelity, this was her last desperate attempt to gain leverage. The threat was multi-layered. Public exposure of intimate videos would certainly generate tabloid frenzy, but the specific targeting of Nora carried more sinister implications. As a doctor who had initially treated Ethan, Nora could face professional ethics investigations if their relationship were portrayed as beginning during her medical oversight. Though they had been scrupulous about establishing boundaries, Lila's edited footage could easily distort the timeline. After Nora left for her hospital shift, Ethan contacted Simon Caldwell, his attorney and trusted friend. "This crosses from civil into criminal territory," Simon stated after examining the materials. "Blackmail, illegal surveillance, potential violation of medical privacy laws if she's accessing treatment information. We should involve law enforcement and risk the videos being leaked during investigation," Ethan questioned. "Nora's reputation would be destroyed. Her medical career could be irreparably damaged. What's your alternative capitulating to Lila's demands?" The question hung between them. Ethan had built his business empire by refusing to yield to pressure, yet this situation involved stakes beyond his personal well-being. Nora's career represented years of sacrifice and dedication, a calling that served countless patients beyond himself. "We need to find who installed the cameras and when," Ethan decided. "That's our leverage proving Lila's involvement in illegal surveillance." Simon nodded. "I'll engage a security firm immediately. Meanwhile, don't confront Lila directly. We need her to believe she has the upper hand while we build our counter case." The investigation proceeded with careful discretion. Security specialists swept the penthouse, discovering hidden cameras in private areas, bedroom, bathroom, and even Ethan's home therapy room, where he often changed clothes. The sophisticated equipment had been professionally installed, likely during the accessibility renovations Lila had overseen. Meanwhile, Ethan maintained outward normalcy with Nora, though the deception weighed heavily on him. Each evening she spent at the penthouse intensified his anxiety, knowing their private moments might still be under surveillance. Despite the security team's assurances they had removed all devices. 2 days after receiving Lila's threat, Ethan was reviewing surveillance equipment installation records when Nora called unexpectedly during her lunch break. "Someone sent me an email with our private photos," she said without preamble, her voice tight with controlled emotion, with a suggestion that my medical license could be reviewed for ethical violations regarding our relationship. Ethan's heart sank. "Nora, I'm so sorry. I was trying to handle this without worrying you." "You knew?" The hurt in her voice was palpable. "How long?" 2 days. I received a similar threat from Lila." Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. "We need to talk," Nora finally said. "Tonight after my shift." The hours until evening passed. With excruciating slowness, Ethan worked with Simon and the security team, documenting evidence of the surveillance operation. They traced the equipment purchase to a shell company linked to Lucas Bennett, Lila's lover and Ethan's former marketing executive. The connection provided crucial evidence of conspiracy. When Nora arrived that evening, her expression was composed but grave. She listened without interruption as Ethan explained everything. Lila's threat, the investigation, the evidence they had accumulated. "Why didn't you tell me immediately?" she asked when he finished. "I wanted to protect you," Ethan admitted, "to solve the problem before it affected your career." Nora's eyes reflected disappointment. "That wasn't your decision to make alone. We're partners, Ethan. That means facing challenges together, not shielding me like I'm something fragile." Her words struck home, revealing how his protective instinct had undermined their relationship's foundation of equality. "You're right," he acknowledged. "I handled this badly." "Yes, you did," Nora agreed without rancor. "But now we move forward together. What options have you and Simon identified?" They discussed potential approaches: legal action, private settlement, public preemptive disclosure, evaluating each against potential impact on Nora's medical career and Ethan's ongoing divorce proceedings. "If we fight this legally," Nora observed, "the process itself becomes public record. Even winning might mean losing my privacy and professional reputation." "And if we capitulate to Lila's demands?" Ethan asked, already knowing Nora's answer. Her expression hardened. "That's not an option. I won't have our relationship dictated by blackmail, regardless of consequences." Her integrity reinforced Ethan's certainty that this woman was worth fighting for, whatever the cost. Together, they formulated a strategy that would protect Nora's career while exposing Lila's illegal actions. The next morning, Nora drafted her resignation letter from Mount Sinai Hospital. The document broke Ethan's heart. "Your happiness means everything to me. I won't let anyone use our love to harm you. Remember me with kindness." It contained no explicit mention of blackmail or surveillance, appearing to any outside observer as a personal decision to prevent professional complications. Simon delivered the letter personally to the hospital administration while simultaneously filing sealed court documents detailing the blackmail attempt. This careful sequencing established Nora's voluntary withdrawal from potentially compromising professional circumstances before any ethics review could be initiated. That evening, as Nora packed her belongings in her small apartment, preparing to temporarily relocate to a hotel, Ethan received the response he had anticipated. Lila called, her voice triumphant. "I see your doctor girlfriend has come to her senses," she purred. "Wise decision. The settlement papers are ready for your signature whenever you're prepared to be reasonable." "I'll review them with Simon," Ethan replied neutrally, giving nothing away. After disconnecting, he messaged Nora. She took the bait. "Believe as you've left me." Nora's response was immediate. "Good. Phase 1 complete. Now we wait." Their plan required patience. While Nora maintained public distance from Ethan, the security team continued building evidence against Lila and Bennett. Bank records showed payments to the surveillance installation company. Email records recovered from River's Fresh servers revealed Bennett had accessed confidential information about Ethan's medical care during his employment. 2 weeks into their separation, the evidence was substantial enough for Simon to present to the district attorney's office. The prosecutor, recognizing the high-profile nature of the case, agreed to proceed with caution, building an airtight case before making any public moves. During this forced separation, Ethan and Nora communicated through encrypted messages and occasional clandestine meetings at Simon's office. The distance paradoxically strengthened their relationship. Each conversation focused on deeper emotions rather than daily practicalities. "I miss waking up beside you," Ethan confessed during one such meeting. "The penthouse feels empty without your presence." Nora squeezed his hand reassuringly. "This separation is temporary. Our future together isn't." Her confidence sustained him through increasingly aggressive moves from Lila's legal team. Having achieved what they believed was leverage through Nora's departure, they pressed for settlement terms that would strip Ethan's control of River's Fresh enterprises. Meanwhile, The prosecutor's investigation proceeded methodically, gathering evidence of conspiracy, illegal surveillance, and blackmail. When they were finally ready to move, events unfolded with swift precision. Arrest warrants were issued for both Lila and Bennett, with charges serious enough to ensure cooperation from even the most expensive defense attorneys. The threatening shadow that had loomed over Ethan and Nora's relationship was about to lift, replaced by the light of justice and vindication. As they prepared to reunite publicly, Ethan reflected that this challenge, like his physical rehabilitation, had ultimately strengthened rather than diminished what they had built together. Chapter 9. Sacrifice and Strength. Nora's resignation letter broke his heart. "Your happiness means everything to me. I won't let anyone use our love to harm you. Remember me with kindness." Though their separation was a planned strategy against Lila's blackmail, the reality of Nora's absence left an emptiness that resonated through every corner of Ethan's penthouse. Memories of her lingered everywhere, her laughter in the kitchen, her silhouette against the Manhattan skyline on the terrace, the gentle determination in her voice during his therapy sessions. Each space held fragments of their life together, now painfully vacant in her absence. Their communications remained limited and encrypted, facilitated through Simon's secure channels. These brief, carefully worded messages became lifelines for Ethan, sustaining him through long days filled with renewed focus on River's fresh enterprises and the methodical gathering of evidence against Lila. "The district attorney needs concrete proof of malicious intent," Simon explained during a private meeting at his office in early August. "Electronic records, financial transactions, witness testimony, anything that establishes Lila's direct involvement in the surveillance installation." The security team worked meticulously, tracing the sophisticated equipment to a shell company with direct financial links to Lucas Bennett. Bank records revealed substantial cash withdrawals coinciding perfectly with the installation timeline. Most damning was the recovery of deleted emails between Lila and Bennett discussing the surveillance plan during Ethan's hospitalization, irrefutable proof. Their scheme had been conceived months before Nora entered his life. Nora's sacrifice weighed heavily on Ethan's conscience. She had voluntarily stepped away from her prestigious position at Mount Sinai, accepting instead a temporary research fellowship at Johns Hopkins. This professional detour, while maintaining her career trajectory, represented a significant disruption to her carefully planned medical path. "She's given up too much," Ethan confided to Simon during a late evening strategy session. "Her career, her reputation, her security, all to protect us from Lila's vindictiveness." Simon's expression softened with rare emotion. "In my 30 years of legal practice, I've observed that the most telling measure of love isn't what people say but what they're willing to sacrifice. Nora chose this path because she values what you've built together more than professional convenience." 3 weeks into their separation, Lila requested a private meeting, clearly confident in the success of her blackmail strategy. The meeting was set at her attorney's office, a sleek, impersonal conference room that felt like a battlefield disguised as a negotiation space. "You're looking remarkably well," Lila observed, her perfect features arranged in a mask of polite concern as Ethan wheeled himself into the room. "I was pleased to hear your doctor friend recognize the impropriety of her relationship. Very professional of her to withdraw." Ethan maintained a carefully neutral expression, revealing nothing of the investigation proceeding against her. "You requested this meeting to discuss settlement terms." Margaret Summers, Lila's high-profile attorney, slid an elegant leather portfolio across the polished table. "Our final proposal, Kitty Generous, considering recent developments." The document detailed demands that were anything but generous: controlling interest in Rivers Fresh's European operations, full ownership of the Manhattan penthouse and Hamptons estate, and significantly increased monthly alimony. Ethan reviewed the terms without visible reaction, though internally he marveled at Lila's audacity. "I'll need to review these with Simon," he stated, neither accepting nor rejecting the proposal. "Don't take too long," Lila advised, her honeyed tone barely concealing the underlying threat. "I'd hate for your former doctor's ethical lapses to become public knowledge. Medical licensing boards take such matters quite seriously." That evening, during a secure call facilitated through Simon's encrypted system, Ethan shared details of the meeting with Nora. "She's overplayed her hand," Nora observed, her analytical mind cutting straight to the strategic implications. "The more excessive her demands and explicit her threats, the stronger our case becomes." A moment of silence stretched between them before Nora spoke again, her voice softening. "How are you really doing, Ethan?" "I miss you," he admitted simply, allowing vulnerability to replace strategy. "The penthouse feels empty without your presence." "I miss you too," she replied, "but remember why we're making this sacrifice. Some injustices need to be confronted, not accommodated." 4 weeks into their separation, with evidence mounting daily, the district attorney determined they had sufficient grounds to proceed with formal charges. Arrest warrants were prepared for both Lila and Bennett on multiple counts: illegal surveillance, blackmail, invasion of privacy, and criminal conspiracy. The day before the planned arrests, however, Nora's temporary absence became suddenly, devastatingly permanent. The call came from her brother Jasper in Georgia, his normally confident voice shaking with emotion. "There's been an accident." Nora was driving back from the research lab when a truck crossed the center line. Ethan's world contracted to a pinpoint of terror, every heartbeat an eternity as he waited for the next words. "She's alive," Jasper continued, "but in critical condition. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding. She's in surgery now." Without conscious thought, Ethan was mobilizing, instructing his pilot to prepare the private jet, contacting Nora's medical colleagues for recommendations on trauma specialists, arranging for immediate transfer to the best possible care once she stabilized. "I'm coming," he told Jasper. "Whatever she needs, whatever it costs, she'll have the absolute best care available." The irony wasn't lost on Ethan as his private jet streaked through the night sky toward Georgia. The man who had once been the patient was now orchestrating medical interventions for the doctor who had helped heal him. The universe had reversed their roles with cruel symmetry, testing whether he possessed the same strength and dedication Nora had shown during his recovery. The regional medical center where Nora had been taken was a far cry from Mount Sinai's state-of-the-art facilities. Ethan's wheelchair moved with urgent purpose through corridors that were barely accessible, his focus entirely on reaching the woman who had become the center of his world. Jasper met him outside the surgical wing, the family resemblance to Nora striking even under these dire circumstances. The two men embraced without awkwardness, united by their shared love for her. "The surgeons are cautiously optimistic," Jasper reported. "They've removed her spleen, repaired damage to her liver, and stabilized fractures to her femur and pelvis. The primary concern now is potential spinal damage. There was compression in the thoracic region. The possibility that Nora might face her own spinal cord injury, the very condition she had helped Ethan navigate, seemed a cruelty too profound to comprehend. Yet even in this moment of terrible uncertainty, Ethan found himself drawing on the lessons Nora herself had taught him. Face reality honestly, fight for what matters, find purpose beyond circumstance. "I've arranged for transfer to Johns Hopkins once she's stabilized," Ethan explained. "Their trauma unit is world-class, and they have the leading spinal specialists in the country." Jasper nodded gratefully. "She spoke of you often during our calls. Said you taught her as much about courage as she ever taught you about medicine." The words touched Ethan deeply, affirming that their relationship had been one of genuine reciprocity despite its unusual beginnings. Hours passed in tense silence as they awaited news. Nora's parents arrived dignified, gracious people whose warm acceptance of Ethan revealed the foundation of Nora's exceptional character. They embraced him not as a wealthy benefactor but as family, recognizing in his devotion the depth of his love for their daughter. When the surgeon finally emerged, his exhaustion evident beneath professional composure, the assembled family held collective breath. "She's stabilized," he reported. "The internal bleeding is controlled, and we've repaired the major organ damage. The orthopedic injuries will require additional surgeries, but those can wait until she's stronger." "And her spine?" Ethan asked. The question weighted with personal understanding of its implications. There was compression but no severing of the spinal cord. "We won't know the extent of neurological impact until she regains consciousness. But the imaging suggests reason for cautious optimism." Relief washed through the gathered family. Nora had survived the immediate danger, though recovery would be lengthy and challenging. "When can we transfer her to Johns Hopkins?" Ethan inquired. Already planning the specialized air ambulance and medical team, at least 48 hours for stabilization, the surgeon advised, "I'll coordinate with their trauma unit to ensure seamless transition of care." As the others went to the cafeteria for much-needed sustenance, Ethan remained in the waiting area, making necessary calls, first to Simon, instructing him to proceed with Lila's arrest as planned justice wouldn't wait, even for personal crisis. Then to Clara at Rivers Fresh, delegating operational decisions for the foreseeable future. Finally to Dr. Lee, his former rehabilitation specialist, requesting recommendations for Nora's recovery team. When he was finally permitted to see Nora in intensive care, the sight of her usually so vibrant and strong amid medical equipment and monitoring devices struck him profoundly. Bandages covered surgical incisions, external fixators stabilized her shattered leg, and the ventilator assisted her breathing until she could manage independently. Taking her hand carefully between his, mindful of the IV lines, Ethan made a silent promise. Just as she had been his rock during recovery, he would be hers through whatever challenges lay ahead. The sacrifice she had made for their relationship, stepping away from her career to counter Lila's blackmail, would be matched by his absolute commitment to her healing. "I'm here," he whispered, though she couldn't yet hear him, "and I'm not going anywhere." The role reversal was complete. The healer now needed healing. The caregiver required care. In this moment of crisis, Ethan discovered that his own recovery had prepared him perfectly for this unexpected challenge. The patience, perseverance, and perspective Nora had helped him develop would now serve them both through her recovery journey. Chapter 10. Truth and Justice. But Nora had underestimated Ethan's determination. While she focused on her recovery at Johns Hopkins Medical Center following her transfer from Georgia, Ethan worked tirelessly with Simon and the legal team, bringing irrefutable evidence against Lila to light. The surveillance equipment was purchased through a shell company created specifically for this purpose. Simon explained during a briefing at Nora's hospital room in mid-September, financial records show direct transfers from an offshore account controlled by Bennett, with Lila's personal funds as the original source. Ethan nodded, reviewing the meticulously documented evidence. "And the installation timing? That's perhaps the most damning element," Simon replied, his expression revealing professional satisfaction. "The work orders and security access logs confirm installation occurred during your initial rehabilitation months before you even met Nora. This was never about professional ethics concerns. It was premeditated surveillance for leverage in the divorce." With Nora's medical condition now stabilized, her surgery successful, and initial physical therapy underway, Ethan divided his time between supporting her recovery and working with the district attorney to build an airtight legal case against Lila and Bennett. "They've offered a plea arrangement," Simon informed Ethan during a private consultation at the hospital. "Reduced charges in exchange for full disclosure of all surveillance activities and immediate surrender of any remaining recordings." "And if they refuse?" Ethan asked. "They face multiple felony counts," Simon replied with the confidence of a seasoned litigator. "The evidence is substantial enough that conviction seems virtually certain, potentially resulting in significant incarceration." The case against Lila strengthened further when the renovation contractor, facing accessory charges himself, agreed to testify about Lila's explicit instructions regarding camera placement. His sworn statement revealed her calculated targeting of Ethan's bedroom and therapy room spaces where any new relationship would inevitably be documented in vulnerable moments. When Nora was sufficiently recovered to comprehend legal matters, she reviewed the evidence with the analytical precision that characterized her medical practice. "She never saw me as a person," she observed thoughtfully, "just as an obstacle to her financial demands. That's why she underestimated us both. She couldn't conceive of a relationship based on something other than transaction." The legal proceedings moved with unusual swiftness for a high-profile case. Facilitated by the overwhelming evidence and the district attorney's desire to make an example of such egregious privacy violations, Lila's expensive legal team explored every potential procedural challenge and technical defense, finding no viable path to dismissal or significant delay. Faced with certain conviction and the public humiliation of a trial that would expose her manipulation in excruciating detail, Lila finally accepted the plea agreement, officially admitting to criminal surveillance and attempted blackmail. Bennett followed suit hours later, his legal position even more untenable, given his direct involvement in the technical aspects of the surveillance operation. The divorce was finalized simultaneously, with Lila receiving significantly less than even Ethan's initial settlement offer. Her reputation in New York society, once untouchable, collapsed under the weight of her criminal behavior. Bennett lost not only his freedom but his professional credibility. His career in marketing effectively ended by his conviction for corporate espionage and privacy violations. As media outlets clamored for exclusive interviews and feature stories about the sensational case, Ethan and Nora declined all publicity. They had pursued justice, not public vindication or revenge. The truth had emerged through proper legal channels, and that quiet victory was sufficient. "Some achievements are better celebrated privately," Nora remarked as they shared a quiet dinner in her hospital room, now decorated with flowers and personal items that made the clinical space feel more human. "What matters isn't public recognition, but knowing we confronted injustice rather than surrendering to it." "To truth," Ethan proposed, raising his glass in toast. "And to justice," Nora added, her eyes reflecting both the hard-won wisdom of their ordeal and the peace that came with its resolution. The shadows that had threatened their relationship had been dispelled, not by retreat or compromise, but by determined pursuit of truth. In facing this challenge together, they had forged a bond that neither physical limitations nor external threats could weaken. Chapter 11. The Trap. Following Ethan's careful plan, Nora agreed to meet him one last time to resolve any lingering public question about their relationship status. The location was deliberately chosen, the garden courtyard of the rehabilitation center where their connection had first blossomed. Though both had moved forward with their lives, this place held significance that made it the perfect setting for what would appear to be a final conversation. The autumn afternoon cast a golden glow across the garden, maple trees displaying brilliant crimson and amber leaves. Nora arrived first, walking slowly with a temporary necessity as she continued recovering from her accident. She wore an elegant navy dress with a simple pearl necklace, her professional appearance masking the deeper purpose of this meeting. She chose a bench near the central fountain, positioning herself as planned, visible from multiple angles, her face clearly illuminated by the afternoon sun. Hidden microphones had been carefully placed that morning, discreetly positioned among the seasonal flowers and ornamental grasses. Unmarked vehicles containing police officers were parked at strategic locations around the perimeter, waiting for the signal. Ethan arrived precisely on time, navigating his wheelchair along the familiar stone pathways with practiced ease. Their greeting was cordial but reserved a handshake rather than an embrace, smiles that seemed tinged with regret. To any observer, they appeared to be two people with shared history meeting to achieve closure. And someone was indeed observing. From behind a sculptural arrangement of ornamental grasses 30 yards away, Lila watched intently. Despite her plea agreement and the pending completion of community service requirements, she had remained fixated on Ethan and Nora's relationship. The anonymous tip about this meeting, strategically leaked by Simon's office, had proven irresistible to her need for final confirmation of her victory. "You're looking well," Ethan remarked, projecting his voice just enough to be captured by the hidden microphones. "The Johns Hopkins position suits you." "The research has been rewarding," Nora replied, following their rehearsed script while maintaining natural body language. "They've offered to make my position permanent on their neurorehabilitation team." "You'll accept, of course," Ethan stated rather than asked, his expression appropriately resigned. "It's an exceptional opportunity," Nora nodded, her expression conveying appropriate regret, one that shouldn't be compromised by complications. "My career must come first," Nora continued. "What happened between us was meaningful but ultimately untenable given the circumstances." "The ethics board's opinion was clear," Ethan added, referencing a fictional review that would further convince Lila their relationship was ending due to professional concerns. "Some boundaries shouldn't be crossed, regardless of intentions." Nora agreed, her fingers fidgeting slightly with her necklacia, natural gesture of discomfort that added authenticity to their performance. "I'll always value what you taught me about recovery," Ethan said, loud enough to be heard clearly. "And your resilience inspired me as well," Nora replied, rising from the bench as though preparing to leave. Perhaps in another lifetime, things might have been different. She offered Ethan a formal handshake that conveyed appropriate distance. From her vantage point, Lila's triumphant smile was unmistakable. She stepped forward from her hiding place, unable to resist the opportunity to witness her apparent success in person. "How touching," she remarked, approaching with calculated casualness, her designer heels clicking against the stone pathway. Her voice dripped with false sympathy. the devoted doctor finally recognizing the impropriety of her relationship with a former patient. Nora stiffened, turning toward Lila with perfectly feigned surprise. "Mrs. Rivers, I wasn't aware you frequented the rehabilitation center." "Just appreciating the garden," Lila replied smoothly, though her eyes gleamed with malicious satisfaction. "And it seems I've arrived at quite the fortuitous moment, witnessing reason prevailing over what shall we call it, misguided compassion." Ethan's expression hardened. "Lila, your presence here isn't appropriate, given the ongoing legal proceedings based on baseless accusations," she countered dismissively, "though it appears Dr. Brooks has wisely reconsidered her position regardless. Protecting her medical license is certainly the prudent choice." As if on cue, police officers emerged from hiding positions around the garden. Detective Sullivan, the lead investigator on their case, approached directly, his badge clearly visible. "Lila Rivers," he stated formally, "you're under arrest for violation of plea agreement conditions and witness harassment." Two officers moved to secure her, reciting her rights as they gently but firmly placed handcuffs on her wrists. The color drained from Lila's perfectly made-up face as comprehension dawned. "This is absurd," she protested, her composure cracking. "I've done nothing wrong. I happened to be visiting the garden." After receiving an anonymous tip about this meeting, Detective Sullivan finished for her, his tone matter-of-fact, "A meeting that violated the explicit no-contact order with both Mr. Rivers and Dr. Brooks. Your phone records confirm you received this information from a blocked number at 9:17 this morning." Lila's eyes widened as realization struck. She had walked directly into an elaborate trap. "You planned this," she hissed at Ethan, her beautiful features distorted with rage. "You set me up." "You set yourself up, Lila," Ethan replied calmly. "Your determination to control and manipulate others finally led you somewhere you can't buy your way out of." As officers escorted her from the garden, Lila's carefully constructed facade crumbled entirely. "This isn't over, Ethan," she called back, her voice trembling with fury and humiliation. "You think you've won. But, Mrs. Rivers," Detective Sullivan interrupted firmly, "I strongly advise you to remain silent until you've consulted with your attorney." They watched as Lila was guided into a waiting police vehicle, her protests fading as the legal consequences of her actions became undeniable. The district attorney, anticipating her potential violation of the plea agreement conditions, had arranged for officers to be present, needing only confirmation of her appearance to justify the arrest. When the garden cleared of law enforcement personnel, with statements taken and evidence secured, Ethan and Nora found themselves alone among the autumn flowers. Their practiced expressions of formality melted away, replaced by genuine smiles that held relief, vindication, and deep affection. "You were brilliant," Ethan said, reaching for her hand. "For a moment, even I believed we were saying goodbye." Nora laughed softly, returning to the bench beside his wheelchair. "Acting wasn't my first career choice, but desperation breeds talent, apparently." Her expression grew more serious. "Do you think she'll ever understand what she's done? Not just the legal violations, but the cruelty of trying to destroy someone else's happiness out of spite." "That would require self-reflection," Ethan replied, shaking his head slightly. "Lila has always believed herself the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of her own downfall. Even now, she sees this as something we've done to her, not a consequence of her own actions." With Lila's arrest for violating her plea agreement, the legal chapter of their ordeal closed definitively. Her demonstrated willingness to continue harassing Ethan and Nora despite court orders revealed a pattern of behavior that would extend her legal consequences and strengthen the protective orders keeping her permanently removed from their lives. As evening approached, casting long shadows across the garden, Ethan and Nora remained reluctant to leave the peaceful setting that had witnessed this final resolution. The fountain's gentle splashing provided a soothing backdrop to their quiet conversation about the future no longer overshadowed by threats or manipulation. "We should celebrate," Nora suggested, her fingers still intertwined with his. "This chapter is finally closed." "Not just closed," Ethan corrected, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. "Transformed. What Lila intended as a weapon against us ultimately brought us closer together." Nora nodded, understanding the profound truth in his words. Their strategy to counter Lila's interference had required absolute trust, perfect coordination, and unwavering commitment to each other elements that had strengthened their bond in ways that might otherwise have taken years to develop. As they left the garden together, the autumn breeze scattered crimson leaves across their path. Nora walked beside Ethan's wheelchair, neither leading nor following but moving in perfect synchronization. The trap had been set and sprung, bringing truth to light and ensuring justice would be served. "It's finally over," Nora said softly as they reached the garden entrance, the setting sun casting their joined shadows far ahead on the pathway, two distinct silhouettes merging into one. "Not over," Ethan replied, his voice gentle but certain. "Just beginning without shadows from the past." Chapter 12. Love Triumphant. Ethan proposed on a spring morning, kneeling on legs that grew stronger each day. Cherry blossoms floated on the gentle April breeze outside the penthouse terrace, a delicate pink snowfall against the Manhattan skyline. Inside, Nora stood frozen in surprise, as Ethan carefully lowered himself from his wheelchair, a move they had practiced for weeks in private physical therapy sessions, using specialized braces and tremendous upper body strength. He balanced on one knee, a position doctors had once declared impossible for him. The achievement represented not just physical progress, but his determination to honor tradition in this most important moment. "Nora," he began, his voice steady despite the physical strain, "you found me at my lowest point and saw beyond my brokenness to the man I could become." Nora's eyes widened, her hand covering her mouth as she realized what was happening. She had returned from an overnight hospital shift to find the penthouse transformed, filled with gardeniature, favorite flower there, sweet fragrance perfuming the air. "You never pitied me," Ethan continued, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. "You challenged me, believed in me, and loved me, not despite my limitations, but as a complete person." His hands were perfectly steady as he opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring knot, a diamond, which would have been expected, but a stone whose rich green color matched the dress she had worn on their first real date. "The past 2 years have taught me that life can change in an instant, sometimes tragically, sometimes miraculously. I don't want to spend another day without knowing you'll be by my side through whatever comes next." His eyes, so often confident in business negotiations, now revealed vulnerable hope. "Nora Brooks, will you marry me?" Nora's answer was in her radiant smile, in the tears that matched his own. "Yes," she whispered, then more confidently, "Yes." She knelt beside him on the floor, disregarding her designer suit, bringing herself to his level rather than forcing him to rise, a simple action that embodied their equal partnership. Their kiss sealed the promise, sweet and certain in the morning light. When they finally parted, Ethan gestured toward the wheelchair. "I might need some help getting back up. Romance occasionally requires practical assistance." Nora laughed, the joyful sound echoing through the penthouse as she helped him return to the chair. Their ability to acknowledge limitations without being defined by them had become a cornerstone of their relationship, finding humor and humanity in the reality of disability, rather than pretending it didn't exist. News of their engagement spread quickly through their respective circles. The media, always hungry for developments in Ethan Rivers' life, reported the story with varying degrees of accuracy and sensitivity. Some outlets focused on the unusual circumstances of their meeting, emphasizing the doctor-patient dynamic that had evolved into romance. Others highlighted Lila's criminal case, now concluded with her serving a 6-month sentence for violating her plea agreement. But Ethan and Nora remained focused on their future, undistracted by outside narratives about their relationship. With the legal challenges behind them, they turned their attention to both professional endeavors and wedding plans. The rehabilitation center Nora had long dreamed of establishing took shape under their combined efforts. Her medical expertise complemented perfectly by Ethan's business acumen. Located on the outskirts of Manhattan, the Rivers Brooks Rehabilitation Institute combined cutting-edge treatment with holistic support, serving patients across the socioeconomic spectrum through innovative funding approaches. "Your brother's construction company has done exceptional work," Ethan observed during a pre-opening tour of the facility. Jasper Brooks had been contracted to ensure perfect accessibility throughout the building, his first-hand experience with disability informing design choices that went beyond standard compliance to create truly inclusive spaces. "He understands the details that make a difference," Nora agreed, pride evident in her voice. The angles of the ramps, the height of the therapy equipment, the dignity afforded by independent navigation. The center would open a month after their wedding, representing the professional culmination of their shared vision. But first came the personal celebration of their commitment and event. They approached with characteristic thoughtfulness. Nothing extravagant. Nora had insisted during early planning discussions. Something meaningful rather than showy. Ethan, who had once defined success through acquisition and display, now found himself in complete agreement. His first wedding to Lila had been a society spectacle, featured in magazines, attended by celebrities. Orchestrated for maximum public impact, this union deserved something authentic rather than performative. They chose the hospital garden as their venue, the same space where Ethan had first recognized his feelings for Nora, where they had set the trap that freed them from Lila's threats, and where they had spent countless hours during his rehabilitation. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone who knew their story. 3 days before the wedding, Ethan achieved another milestone in his recovery. After months of specialized therapy and experimental treatments, he stood, supported only by forearm crutches, taking several steps independently during a session at their newly completed rehabilitation center. "I want to stand for our vows," he told Nora that evening. His expression a mixture of determination and vulnerability. "Not because I need to, but because I can, thanks to you believing it was possible." Nora touched his face gently. "I never doubted your strength. But please remember that whether you stand or sit, use crutches or the chair, it changes nothing about how I see you or love you." Her acceptance freed him from the pressure of performance, allowing the choice to stand to become a gift rather than an obligation. This understanding exemplified the foundation they had built on, based on authentic acceptance rather than expectations. Their wedding day dawned clear and bright, the hospital garden in full bloom for the intimate gathering. Only 60 guests attended, family, close friends, and colleagues who had supported their journey. Among them sat a dignified couple in their 70s, Nora's parents, who had embraced Ethan despite vast differences in background and circumstance. Also present were several of Ethan's former therapists, Clara Hudson from Rivers Fresh Enterprises, Simon Caldwell and his wife, and, most surprisingly, Daniel Peterson, the peer counselor who had warned Ethan during early rehabilitation that his marriage to Lila might not survive his injury. "You proved me wrong in the best possible way," Daniel told Ethan before the ceremony, gesturing toward Nora, who was speaking with guests nearby. "Not about Lila was right about her, but about finding someone who sees beyond the chair." "She never saw the chair," Ethan replied thoughtfully. "She saw me struggling to reclaim my identity and reminded me that who I am has nothing to do with whether I can walk." When the ceremony began, Ethan stood with the support of specialized braces and crutches, a triumph of will and modern medicine. Nora walked toward him, not in a traditional white gown but in a simple dress of pale blue that complemented her rich complexion and reflected the color of the sky above their garden setting. Their vows were personal rather than traditional, promises crafted from the unique understanding they had developed through challenge and triumph. "I promise to see you completely," Ethan pledged, "your strength and vulnerability, your brilliance and humanity. I promise to build with you rather than for you, to listen as carefully as I speak, and to remember that our greatest asset is neither wealth nor health, but our capacity for resilience together." Nora's vows matched his in thoughtfulness. "I promise to walk beside you, metaphorically and literally, adjusting my pace to yours when needed, but never slowing your progress with doubt. I promise to challenge you when you need strength, and support you when you need rest. Most of all, I promise to remember that love isn't found in perfect circumstances, but created in imperfect reality." As they exchanged rings, sunlight filtered through cherry blossoms overhead, casting dappled shadows across their joined hands. The moment held a quiet magic that no society wedding could have manufactured authentic emotion in a setting that had witnessed both struggle and triumph. Simon, who served as best man, later described the ceremony as healing made visible, a phrase that captured the transformation evident to everyone present. What had begun as a medical relationship had evolved through integrity, challenge, and genuine connection into a partnership that strengthened both participants. Their reception, held in the rehabilitation center they had created together, balanced celebration with purpose. Instead of wedding gifts, They had requested donations to a foundation established to provide cutting-edge rehabilitation services to patients without financial resources. As evening approached, Ethan and Nora shared their first dance, a moment they had choreographed to accommodate his mobility while highlighting their natural synchronicity. When the music ended, they remained in motion, foreheads touching, moving to a rhythm only they could hear. "Are you happy?" Nora asked softly, her eyes searching his. "Beyond anything I imagined possible," Ethan replied with absolute certainty. "2 years ago, I thought my life had ended. In reality, it was just beginning." Their honeymoon took them to Georgia, where Nora's family welcomed Ethan into their close-knit community with genuine warmth. The modest home where she had grown up could not have been more different from his privileged upbringing, yet he found himself more comfortable among her straightforward relatives than he had ever been in Manhattan's elite social circles. Upon their return, they settled into a rhythm that balanced professional commitments with personal connection. The rehabilitation center flourished under their complementary leadership, Nora overseeing medical protocols, while Ethan handled administrative and financial aspects. Their innovative approach soon attracted attention from medical publications and disability advocacy organizations, creating opportunities to expand their model nationally. 6 months after their wedding, during a routine gathering of their extended families, Nora shared news that left everyone speechless with joy. She was pregnant, and ultrasounds confirmed they were expecting twins, a boy and a girl, she announced. Her hand intertwined with Ethan's as emotion overwhelmed his usual composure. "2 little miracles," she said, "who will grow up knowing that true love isn't about physical perfection or wealth, but about seeing the beauty in each other's souls." Their wedding had been intimate, held in the hospital garden where they first met, and if anyone noticed that the flower girl was a small terrier wearing a bow tie, the same dog Ethan had saved that fateful night, well, that just made the story more perfect.